Hi, I'm Felicia, and I'm doing my presentation on The Walking Dead and the zombie narrative in popular culture, and most specifically in the context of the public library. So, zombies in the public library is my first slide. Um, I think this is an important topic to talk about just because zombies are everywhere in the library, from The Walking Dead, which is a comic book, to the classic film The Night of the Living Dead by George A. Romero, and the very, very hugely popular television show The Walking Dead, based off of the comic book. There are also other types of zombie media, such as the book by Max Brooks, World War Z, which is fictional but presented as firsthand accounts of people who have to survive during the zombie apocalypse. And then there's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is um, parody and satire. And then there's Resident Evil. So if your public library has video games, they most probably have Resident Evil as well. So zombies make up a big part of the public library's collection. An introduction to zombies. I'll just go over the bullet points here. The first thing is zombie media and ephemera contribute a total of $5 billion to the world economy to date. That's an enormous amount of money, so that just gives you an idea of the scale um, that this idea has um, accrued income. Zombie preppers, I want you to know who those are, because zombie preppers are people who actually believe that zombies are going to um, be something feasible in the future, that we actually have to prepare for them. So these people build their houses around how they could fight off zombies and how they can survive during the zombie apocalypse. So they're hoarding food, canned goods and such. Number three, zombies are a subject of intellectual discussion. American philosopher Noam Chomsky has written essays on the subject, one of them titled Why Americans Are Paranoid About Everything, Including Zombies. Um, I just wanted to give everyone an idea of the the academic context of zombies. There have been a lot of essays written about them, what they mean, and later on I'm going to talk about posthumanism, which is like an academic word for a philosophical theory surrounding zombies. Um, the other bullet point is the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, raised preparedness for real catastrophes via a fun zombie-related 2011 blog post. So just gives you an idea of how serious uh, the zombie concept has become. Although it was a fun zombie-related blog post, kind of poking fun at it, it also, I mean, the CDC is a serious institution, and it gave the public the idea that they were actually taking this idea seriously. So that's how scary they've become. And the last bullet point, older zombie films, pre-Romero, tended to exploit rather than explore the zombie narrative. So there was black exploitation films. There are essays written on how movies pre-Romero and even after Romero are racist and show signs of xenophobia. So given those bullet points, again, in the context of the public library, you can see that you can do a book discussion or any kind of presentation on zombies from all different kinds of angles. And the more I talk about it, you'll see that there's even more than just those ideas. So the origin of the zombie is from Haiti. Zombie means reanimated corpse. So Haiti suffered under French colonization during the 17th and 18th century, and the zombie was this idea that they come up with, sort of a part of their folklore, where if you committed suicide under these harsh and abusive conditions, then you would remain a zombie forever, and you would just kind of roam and stalk the plains, and you would just be a zombie eternally. You would eternally be a slave, essentially, without a soul. And if you were able to make it through your entire life as a slave and died a natural death, of course you would have the chance to go to heaven or something similar to heaven. So the zombie was in the idea of you not being able to be strong enough, or a slave not being able to be strong enough to make it through their life. Um, so that's just an idea of zombies' Haitian origins. There are other examples of zombies in Haiti that have to do with shamanism. So, an example of a movie that was released based on the Haitian folklore of the zombies was this movie called White Zombie, which is an example of classical Hollywood cinema in the sound era. So this was right when sound came out, and it's a pre-code horror film. They had this thing called the Hays Code, which after this 1932, the Hays Code was put into place, and it just was a code that said you have to depict movies that show normal life. You couldn't depict violence in a positive way. Violence always had to be a bad thing. So it had these very vague rules, and White Zombie was something that happened before that, so it was really crazy and out there. The modern age of comics. I wanted to go back to comics. So we've been talking about zombies, but I'm trying to segue into the zombies in The Walking Dead. So we've talked about this in class. Photorealism emerged during the modern age. Lots of detail, hatching, cross-hatching, coloring, shading. But you can see even in the modern age of comics, there's the top photo is from iZombie and the bottom photo is from The Walking Dead, and they show completely different styles of photorealism. So we talked about this in class as well. There's a huge variety and different points of view on how things can be portrayed. So I just wanted to go over that as to give us context of which age of comics that The Walking Dead fits under, and what it looks like comparatively. Okay, so my introduction to The Walking Dead. This comic book release was in 2003, and it's written by a man named Robert Kirkman, and it was illustrated by Tony Moore for the first volume. After the second volume, Charlie Adlard replaced Moore, and like other comics, the artists change. So, Tony Moore wanted to do a variety of projects, and I think Charlie Adlard focused solely on The Walking Dead, starting with volume 2. This is common in the comic book world. The second bullet point, the fourth season of The Walking Dead on AMC was watched by 16.11 million viewers. And Robert Kirkman is the executive producer of the show. So Robert Kirkman, the creator of the comic book, has a huge say in how the show is made and how it's shown to his audience. 16.11 million viewers is a ton. The fifth season had 17.3, which was the most watched episode in cable history, giving you an idea of how popular this show is and why it might be important to address in public libraries in a sort of educational context. And then the last bullet point is The Walking Dead an allegory for our times? We'll talk about that soon. Usually zombie movies are seen as an allegory for their times, and I'll explain that starting with Night of the Living Dead. So George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. He kind of laid down the ground rules for what zombies were supposed to be like. They hunger for human flesh, move slow, hunt in packs, only fully die if decapitated. They turn their victims into zombies like themselves with one bite. Romero started that that idea of the zombie. And you can see that follow in zombie movies to date. 28 Days Later, Dawn of the Dead, the remake. And I wanted to talk about the historical context surrounding Night of the Living Dead. So Night of the Living Dead was released in 1968, the same year that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And Night of the Living Dead kind of accidentally featured a black protagonist. Romero had written, George A. Romero, I'm sorry, that's a typo, but Romero had written the screenplay before even knowing that the protagonist was going to be black. And once they chose him, they just kept the screenplay exactly how it was, and it ended up being kind of revolutionary for the time without meaning to be. And I'll talk about that more. The civil rights movement was also going on during the time that Night of the Living Dead came out, and for a lot of people, it mirrored the racial struggle, represented the inability to build community. You have these people in this house trapped trying to fight zombies, and they still can't get along, even in the face of danger. Showed the failure of an impotent government. The government, you know, can't, is struggling to find out what's going on. They don't know what's going on, and in the end, they make a terrible mistake and kill, a human being, thinking that that human being is a zombie without interrogating it. So all of these ideas are presented in Night of the Living Dead, kind of again on accident, but if you put something in context, it makes all the meaning. There is the saying that, it's not always the author's intention that creates the meaning, but once it's out there, it's the audience that creates that meaning for the cultural artifact. The Vietnam War in Night of the Living Dead. So the Vietnam War was going on too. You see things that are extremely violent. I mean, it was the first televised war in history, and this extreme violence was kind of mirrored in Night of the Living Dead. You see a little girl stabbing her mother to death and eating her dad, and it's just, kind of a way to express society's fears at that moment. Just a interesting thing, in the Light of the Living Dead, the countryside is presented as an appealing landscape. So you have the ghettos in the city, you have the protests happening in the city, you have all these horrible things happening in the city, and the countryside is kind of presented as a getaway. The Walking Dead kind of does that too. It shows you an idyllic countryside landscape, but in the end, it doesn't really save you, because things are always out to get you there as well. So that's kind of another sort of commentary that's going on here. Symbolism in the zombie narrative post-Romero. Zombies signify uncertain times, anxiety about the future, etc. People in today's society need a safe space to explore apocalyptic worries. I think there is some truth to that. Fans are able to distract themselves from reality of real plagues such as SARS, nuclear war, by experiencing it through fiction and going to bed at night, knowing that it's all fiction. What does being surrounded by ravenous strangers really mean? Is there still a racial commentary going on here? Probably. If you can read that into it, definitely, if you want to. In Night of the Living Dead, zombies stand for unreasoning, destructive conformity. So you have all these people, kind of doing the same thing. They're brainless. They're just consuming and consuming. And especially in Dawn of the Dead, which was also by Romero, that was a commentary on consumerism, shopping, and that kind of thing. 4 main eras of zombie culture. I just wanted to go over this. It's interesting now because I know about the eras of comic books, but there are eras of everything. So for zombies, and I'm sure there are for vampires and witches and everything, but zombies, there's a golden age of George, which he created what the zombie was. They're flesh eaters, basically. Beyond Romero is the second one. Ghouls just want to have fun. So you have people poking fun at the idea of the zombie, thinking it's kind of a joke, not taking it too seriously. That starts with Michael Jackson's music video Thriller, and other kind of funnier zombie movies. Number 3, You Can Run But You Can't Hide. Post 9/11 zombies, they're infected with rage. You can see this in World War Z, and in 28 Days too. Killer programming offers new possibilities. That's talking directly to The Walking Dead, and we'll talk about those new possibilities. So if you want to talk about the zombies in Haitian culture versus the zombies in The Walking Dead, people can look at it this kind of in a negative light, that we're not paying respect to their origin, where Haitian zombies were kind of an expression of, this terrible abuse people were going through, and this fear that people were living with, like this very real fear of their own death. People think that The Walking Dead is kind of the opposite. It was a glorification of life, rugged individualism, and idealism, because it makes every choice you make and everything you do in your life the most important thing in the entire world, and your life is the most important life in the entire world compared to everybody